Hello and welcome. I'm Yavar Moradi of the Goldsmith Odyssey podcast, here with you today to speak with the team behind the new Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign from our friends at Intrada Records, all gathered here to celebrate Frank Skinner's classic score to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. There are a lot of folks to introduce, and we have limited time, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Roger Feigelson of Intrada Records. Roger, great to be with you again.
Thanks. Great to be here. Great to do another Kickstarter.
Excellent. Yeah. It's been a while since we talked about Black Patch. Next, we welcome back my favorite conductor for new recordings of classic film music, William Stromberg. Bill, so great to be with you again for the first time since we discussed those two Jerry Goldsmith scores.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to do this score for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
But filling out the old Tribute Film Classics team with Bill and participating in score reconstruction on this project are his wife, Anna Stromberg. Welcome, Anna, and so glad you could join us.
Hello, and thank you. I'm glad to be part of it.
And also Bill's good friend, John Morgan, who also happens to be one of my oldest friends in the world of film music, dating back, at least 20 years, I'd say. John, I thought about having you on the Goldsmith Odyssey for years, and I'm so glad to finally be in the same Zoom room with you to discuss one of your all-time favorite scores, which I remember you introducing me and my wife to on your home theater system maybe 15 years ago. So I know you've both been like hoping to do this for a long time, and I guess I don't know. Did Marco Polo at the time have cold feet because they saw it as a comedy score rather than the horror score that it really was more?
If we would have maybe put it a little earlier, we could have got by with it. But we did about 4 Frankenstein films and about 3 none but horror films from university, and I think we were winding down a little bit. And
Basically, Marco Polo, I think they wanted to keep it serious, the more serious films, because they were really known as a classical music label.
Right.
Yeah, but I wanted to do
anyways.
The Horn Blows at Midnight.
Yeah.
Forever.
Oh, and we did fun. We did George Washington Slept Here. We did a lot of comedy fun scores,
Well, I want to introduce one more special guest who is actively supporting this project, Jonathan Reichman of the Abbott and Costello Fan Club. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I was actually curious. Can folks talk about the genesis of this project? I know it's been percolating in your head at least for many years, John. But when did conversations first start about this, and how did it come up again?
It was probably in the 1990s when we were really just starting out, because we would always get that title suggested to us, but we thought, we just didn't know, if that would.
So there have been a lot of fan requests over the years.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're dropping off because everyone's kind of going away now, if you know what I mean.
I mean, they're dying.
Exactly.
So this is kind of maybe the last chance to get it while there are still some folks around who, remember this era fondly.
I have to be honest, Jonathan Reichman, he contacted me, and he kind of got the ball rolling. He put it into my head like, hey, you should do this.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated him contacting me, and I thought, well, we should make this happen.
Yeah.
Why not? Like, it's a fun score, great Frank Skinner. And so I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And Bill, I've been a collector of all your CDs, and I've loved particularly the Universal horror scores that you've recorded. And being a part of the Abbott and Costello community, I thought, this really cries out for a CD of its own, because it's a great score. It's a great film. It's on AFI's list of the 100 top comedies of all time. It's been an incredibly seminal and influential horror comedy. It's influenced everything from the Scooby-Doo cartoons, the Ghostbusters, to Young Frankenstein, including the scores of those various works.
Mm-hmm.
So I really felt that this was something that should be done.
So true. Very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And they did it, Universal did it with respect, because they kept it serious. They the director went over, they had a Universal, they wanted to hire someone other than Bela Lugosi to play Dracula, and didn't want to, give him a lot of money, but Charles Barton, I think it was,
Yeah.
he says no. Same circumstance with Igor in Son of Frankenstein, Roland V. Lee. They wanted to shortchange Bela Lugosi, and he said no, and wrote his part, fuller and, a better part for him.
And another ironic thing is that Lou Costello didn't even want to do the film.
No.
When the producers presented him with the script, he said, "My 5-year-old kid could write better garbage than this."
Yeah.
and got him to do it by giving him an advance. The producers were so certain they had a hit on their hands that they gave him an advance against his profit participation in the film. And he did it, and it wound up being one of the top 10 films of 1948. And he still didn't think it was good until at the premiere, his mother sitting next to him turned to him and said, "This is the best thing you've ever done."
And even today, I think it's pretty widely regarded as one of their best films, right?
Yes.
I think it's considered the best film that they did. It catapulted them back into the top 10 box office, and they held that spot again for another 3 or 4 years. They did several horror spoof sequels that have a number of high points to them, but they didn't equal the first one.
No.
That's why it's so beloved today.
Yeah.
By doing a new recording like this, you're bringing this music back to people who've never heard it before, younger generations that haven't heard it before. I was too young to know this music, but I was introduced to it back in the 1970s or the 1980s, I should say, when Tom Hatton would host Family Film Festival on KTLA in Los Angeles, and that's where I first saw it. So by doing a new re-recording like this, younger generations will hear it for the very first time. Keeping it new.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really great is the more I get into this as we orchestrate and reconstruct the score, I come to realize Frank Skinner knew what he was doing. Some of this music is really avant-garde and advanced. You can't really hear some of his nuance in the film. And there are great subtleties, and I don't think he once uses except for the very last chord, he doesn't use straight major minor chords in music. He uses all these altered chords, diminished sevenths and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, Frank Skinner is one of my favorite kind of overlooked nowadays golden age composers. I think when he was alive and working, film music fans knew him pretty well because he had a number of soundtrack albums come out during the 50s and 60s, and that was a rare occasion. It's not like every composer had a bunch of soundtrack albums coming out. Look how many Bernard Herrmann LPs there were by the 60s, right? It wasn't plentiful. So but nowadays, of course, Bernard Herrmann's still really well remembered, and sadly Frank Skinner isn't as well remembered. There haven't been a lot of CD issues of his work, so this is pretty significant as one of his major works for one of the most popular films he's scored. And so it's an important project, and it's really heartening to see how much support there already is. I feel like the backer number is already approaching almost 400 people by the time we're recording this. And that's where Intrada's very first Kickstarter campaign for Dial M for Murder ended, was like 404 people. So it's off to a really promising start. I'm optimistic, and hopefully by the time this is edited and comes out, it's already fully funded. But if there are any stragglers, I hope this helps convince them to join in on it.
We're 10 days in and we're at 38% funded, so
that's
that's
pretty
pretty
good.
good. But that's a third of the way there, so we've got to get.
And
Yeah,
I am
absolutely.
really hoping that we make it to the stretch goal, because Keystone Cops is such a fun score.
You want to talk about that briefly, Anna? Because I think a lot of people don't know that. And of course, unlike Frank Skinner on Meet Frankenstein, the 3 composers of that score were not credited because of Universal's policy of they only credit a composer if they wrote more than half of a score.
Right.
So Yeah, they didn't. I think a lot of people might not even realize that had an original score because there was no credited composer.
Yes, we'd be filling out the album with that score, and that actually has 3 composers that are on it: William Lava, Herman Stein, and Henry Mancini. So we'll have
Who's
to.
Henry Mancini?
I don't know who it is. I've never heard of him before.
yeah.
Just kidding.
This is actually Mancini's centenary year, so it would be really appropriate if
Wow,
there was a
great.
new recording.
Well, Henry Mancini, I believe, came up with most of the thematic material, and then he handed it off to William Lava, Herman Stein, to flush it out and finish it. You know what I mean?
It makes
But
sense that they would play to his melodic strength.
Exactly,
if they
yeah.
recognized it.
Henry Mancini, I'm sure, came up with that main theme. Matter of fact, I know he did because I looked at the cue sheet.
The cue sheet it identifies which composer wrote each cue, I assume, right?
Yeah.
That's right, exactly. And so Henry came up with the opening credits and all that. So then the other guys just used that main theme, which we dance around the house to all the time.
How does that go, Bill? How's it go?
That sounds like Mancini. So I mean,
I know. It sounds like the Great Race.
Yeah, a lot of great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The chase theme in the Great Race is similar.
Yeah.
The score, this score was so well loved at Universal that in 1965, Universal released a compilation film called The World of Abbott and Costello, and they used the Keystone Cops theme as the credit music for The World of Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's very catchy.
Well, it's a kind of music you associate with either silent comedy or early comedy. You know, just a lot of verve and fun in it.
And that's pretty remarkable early example of Mancini writing comedic music, right? Because he wasn't necessarily focusing on that while he was in his Universal contract. I think he was doing a lot of horror scores and things like Creature from the Black Lagoon, right? That was, his assignment a lot of the time. So here we have Henry Mancini before he was the Henry Mancini and still writing a recognizable, comedic tune, which he would do so much the following decade.
Mancini's first job at Universal was scoring a scene from Abbott and Costello's 1952 film Lost in Alaska. He scored one scene where Costello gets bitten in the rear end by a crab. And that was Mancini's introduction to film scoring.
Does he have that in his resume?
I don't know, maybe.
But anyway, I believe Frank Skinner, though, back to Skinner, the Frankenstein score elevates the film beyond where it could be. You know what I mean? If he had just done a comedy score for the whole film, I don't think it would be the classic it is today. The fact that Frank Skinner stayed with his style of the earlier scores that he did, like Son of Frankenstein and other things like Saboteur or whatever, but he kept it more serious, and I think that's what makes it funny. He made it like a real Universal horror film,
Yeah.
And he only every once in a while does a little bit, tongue in cheek kind of wah every once in a while, but not that much.
It's
Mostly
not the central flavor.
No, and it takes a lot of real strong artistic sense to think of that as a strategy to scoring. Like when Jerry Goldsmith scored The Secret of NIMH, he didn't score an animated picture. He scored as if it was a live action film.
Oh,
And that the sense to come up with that strategy for scoring is it's pretty impressive, and this is the case of it.
Roger, I did want to ask you a little bit about how Intrada got involved with this. I think for a lot of film music fans, it's maybe coming a little bit out of left field since it wasn't one of the 10 scores on the public poll you held last year for new Intrada projects. So how did this come about that it eventually found a home at Intrada?
you can thank Jonathan, right?
Okay.
That and after hearing about this potential project for years, we just needed to shut these people up.
Yeah.
Bill, John, just keep. It's like, let's just do it so we can get
Make
on
the
with
talent
it.
happy. I mean, you
No.
plan to do, I hope, a lot more recordings with this team. So I'm glad that they're doing something that's a passion project of theirs, and maybe eventually we'll still get the chairman somehow, or the Jungle Book, or
There's
more.
so many, and this is what is crazy when we're actually in Scotland recording one of these, and we go out to lunch. The ideas for potential projects, it's like several
50
lifetimes worth of
Yeah.
projects. And it's like, so how do we pick which ones to do? And I'm looking at one that really deserve to be re-recorded. I mean, there's things that, there's fine recordings out there. We don't need to redo those, but also have some sort of market potential that people would want to actually contribute to the Kickstarter. We know we can't just spend our own money and do it because they just don't sell enough to recoup the costs. So it's financially, we can't do that. So it's really this crowdfunding that makes them possible. So we've got to find projects that will hopefully have enough appeal to fund. And each one, Dial M for Murder, Black Patch, On Dangerous Ground, different audiences, different appeal, different risks. So each product is so different from the previous one. Yeah, so Dial M for Murder funded by the skin of its teeth. Does that mean Black Patch will fund? Who knows? And if Black Patch is On Dangerous Ground, we felt a little more confident on that one because it's Bernard Herrmann and it's such an important score. And then we tried this one, which is like, I don't know, Frank Skinner, Abbott and Costello. I know we just talked. It's not a comedy score, but it's still a comedy, and comedy don't sell regardless of how serious the score.
Remember, Lou said Abbott Costello and Need Frankenstein won't sell. It's going to be a lousy movie.
But they didn't try to fundraise first before making the movie.
Right, yeah.
They just spent their money, and, so here we're trying to prove. So
you've got to lean into the Frankenstein like Frank Skinner did, because horror scores do tend to sell. So since it sounds more like a horror score than a comedy score, hopefully, and it'll carry the comedy score Keystone Cops along with it, hopefully. Because that's only, I think, 8,000 more to add on the whole extra score, which would really make it a better value for all backers. So let's hope that the push happens for that to occur too, and celebrate Mancini's centenary.
Yeah, because Abbott Costello Need Frankenstein is only 43 minutes.
Right.
So
it's kind of a similar situation to On Dangerous Ground being joined by The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Exactly.
Like a 45-ish minute score.
Yeah.
Unless, Bill, you conduct really, really slow, then we can. Just kidding.
No, yeah. I mean, Keystone, we'll probably only be able to do about 30 minutes from Keystone. So it'll be a really nice bonus. And we're also going to re-record one of the famous end cast pieces that were in all the famous horror films. Ba-da-ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum. As a little bonus. So you're hearing it for the first time here. So we're going to
you do some good Easter eggs sometimes. Like I remember, was it King of the Khyber Rifles on one of your tribute?
Yeah, Bill.
Albums?
Right.
Yeah, that was, we just threw, we
Bonus
didn't,
track.
I don't think we even listed it. We
It's
just
not
put it
listed.
in as a bonus.
You only know when you
Easter egg.
play it till the end.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, just for fun. Because we had it sitting in front of us, we decided to do
We
it.
did that a lot because we put the trailer for House of Wax
Yeah, on Don Juan.
on Don Juan
Yeah.
and the original Frankenstein, the first movie.
Oh yeah, that was on She.
Yeah.
We recorded as a bonus on one of our albums the actual original Frankenstein music for the first Frankenstein.
That had,
And it was like the only music in the movie, so we recorded that.
that's the one that Leonard Maltin, in his little capsule review of Frankenstein, says this movie screams for a score.
Yep.
That's right. And the composer, Bernard Kahn.
Bernard
Kahn wrote the music for that. It's too bad he didn't write music for the rest of the film. Although that movie is really creepy without music. So
It does work.
Yeah. And he was busy with Max Steiner.
That's the reason we put it on our She album, because Bernard Kahn actually wrote like the first 2 reels of She and orchestrated all the rest. So that's why we included it.
Bernard Kahn actually wrote original cues for She?
Yeah, you're not supposed to know that, but yeah, he wrote.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
He wrote most of reel 2, I believe, and part of reel 1.
He wrote the stuff that.
But he used Max's sketches. He used Max's thematic material.
So he really arranged.
He kind of arranged.
He didn't come
He
up
took
with-
Max's material and made something out of it.
Okay, scoop. Jonathan, can you talk a little more about your involvement in helping this recording come about, and how is the official Abbott and Costello Fan Club involved?
Sure. Yeah, I was. I reached out to Bill through a mutual friend. I think what first gave me the idea, Bill. There's a clip on YouTube of you leading, I think, a youth orchestra.
That's right.
Opening credit music, and then the final scene, and then the closing credit, traditional Universal.
That's right. We recorded that like 10 years ago. We did it in live concert. Yeah.
I reached out to Bill, and I've also been in touch with the fan club and looking as to how we can support this and promote it among the fan base. And we're also trying to reach out. There are a number of celebrities who are known Abbott and Costello fans, and fans in particular of Meet Frankenstein, including people like Quentin Tarantino, who I think is on a special feature of one of the DVD editions of it, talking about how influential the film was for him.
Wow.
About maybe 25, 30 years ago, Jerry Seinfeld did a special for NBC called Abbott and Costello Meet Seinfeld, talking about his love of it. People like Larry David.
So you're going to bring them on as backers?
That's what I'm hoping to do. I'm working on establishing contact with people like that, and because I think they would be very enthusiastic.
I mean, I don't know why a big film music fan like Steven Spielberg, with his resources, isn't just funding a bunch of classic film score recordings at Intrada or tribute, or like it's what I would do if I had his clout in Hollywood. So
yeah,
I'm kind of like
eight or nine kids to take care of, but yeah.
Now tell me, this Intrada is now, isn't it the longest regular entity that does new recordings? Because I don't know.
Intrada started in 1986 with Islands in the Stream, and I'm not sure when Perez began, but they're not still.
So I guess Intrada probably is the only company doing, because Tadlow's out of it now.
Quartet is
except for
some.
Quartet's doing stuff. Yeah, that's amazing.
That was that great
and my friend
album.
Lee Phillips is doing all these great recordings of Goldsmith, and which
we don't know anything about those.
Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about them?
No, it's fine. I'm joking. Like he's doing those with us, very involved at the Goldsmith Odyssey.
Yeah, the GE Theater and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and more to come.
Well, and did you hear that Doug just told me they're going to release it on Intrada
On the 8th.
What?
On the 8th
On the 8th
of July. It shipped from the plant.
Very good. Okay, so that's confirmed.
Let's not forget Elmer Bernstein, who was pretty contemporary with Gerhardt and doing fuller score albums rather than selections of various scores for they're Betty Davis themed or Errol Flynn themed or themed based on the composers. His film music collection, where he would do not complete scores, but he did Ghost and Mrs. Muir and
Torn Curtain.
Torn Curtain, yeah, he premiered Torn Curtain on album, and I still like his better.
I do too.
Joel McNeely one.
This is still my favorite, actually. Yeah.
And didn't Henry Mancini record albums of his own film music that weren't off of the soundtrack of the film? He would
right.
That was kind of a
Great Race.
It was. That was kind of a different phenomenon that a variety of composers did, where they would especially record for album around the time the film came out. Like Miklos Rocha did actually 3 albums for Ben-Hur in the late 50s and maybe early 60s for the volume 2. But that's kind of a different phenomenon than what these folks do, recording new versions of classic scores like decades and decades after, rather than as a contemporaneous tie-in with the film itself.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because even Jaws, the album that came out by John Williams, was a new performance, not the actual original soundtrack.
Yeah, and Jerry Goldsmith had like a dozen of those too. Like Damien Omen 2 had a new recording for album, and I think like I think the first one was maybe The Prize in the 60s. He did like he specially recorded five tracks, 5 cues from The Prize, and I think that was the first time he did
And a lot of that was for economic reasons.
Yeah.
That it was cheaper to actually record the score in Europe than it was to pay the musicians' fees in the US to release the original tracks.
But sometimes it was creatively he wanted to, expand on certain things and whatnot.
What?
But wasn't the Mancini score to The Great Race recorded here in town, but with just a reduced orchestra, that kind of thing?
No,
that happened too.
For the record, yeah.
Yeah,
for the record.
Yeah, the movie had a full.
No, the movie was normal,
Yeah.
but he re-recorded it for an album.
Well, they did that at
with less players.
Mad World used.
Oh yeah, it's a Mad World. Yeah.
Used L.A. Phil, and it would have cost a fortune to do that just for a standalone album. So got studio, session people to re-record it.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought it was always L.A. Phil all the way through.
Well, they were members of it, but they got it. And he also was able to round off some of the cues where they just don't abruptly stop, right endings.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some rearrangements for like listening purposes on album rather than fitting to screen, and like was brought up. Sometimes budgetary reasons meant a smaller orchestra still done, in the States or something. But like Franz Waxman's Taurus Bulba is a great album, but that's famously a smaller ensemble than the film version. Oh, you were talking about getting other folks involved, and I think you're also in touch with Lou Costello's daughter, who supports this project.
Yeah, I've done my day job is I'm a lawyer, and I specialize in entertainment and copyright law, and I've done work for the Abbott and Costello estates over the years on various copyright and right of publicity matters. So I got to know them, both based on the fact that I'm a passionate Abbott and Costello fan and have been my whole life, and got reacquainted with them in a legal capacity, and through that have gotten involved with the fan club as well, and that all culminated in my approach to Bill, I guess about a year ago, and so again we're looking to take advantage of the support among the fan club. Looking to take advantage among the popularity of the film with the entertainment community, including a number of my other clients. Goal is obviously to meet, the target for Frankenstein and Keystone Cops. And by the way, Bill, I have a question for you about Keystone Cops. And this applies to a lot of the Universal films from the early 50s, both Abbott and Costello and the monster movies. Joseph Gershenson, you always see this credit, musical direction.
Yeah.
What was his role, and how did he wind up with that credit?
He was like a music supervisor who just guided everyone what to compose, do this, compose. He always got credit, but often the composers didn't get credit at all on those. So that's right?
Yeah.
He was just a music supervisor who took credit for everything.
He would assign to composers he knew would do good in certain kinds of music for a film. So you could have like 4 different composers working on The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of a man he was. I really don't know. Do you?
I've never met him. No.
He was also a conductor, right? I think he got conducting credit. So I don't know if he was taking credit while Jerry Goldsmith was actually conducting Lonely Are the Brave or something like that. But I think he conducted a lot of those Universal scores.
I think he did, and he did for Mancini when he got his own films at Universal. He would do rehearsing conducting while Mancini was in the booth, making sure everything was heard. So.
Well, anyway, that's all I know is I know he assigned cues. That's all I know. Sorry, Jonathan.
But the only sad thing is that he would take music supervision in his name. You would see no other name for any composer.
No, I know. I mean, because Mancini and Herman Stein, all these guys wrote so much music for all these old films. And
Yeah.
you just see Gershonson's name on there. It's crazy.
I mean,
I
like
also want-
the teacher of Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams and Henry Mancini was Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco, and
Tedesco, yeah.
he toiled away at Universal for many years, and I think wrote for hundreds of movies without any credit at all, because
See?
the rule was if you write less than 50% of the score, you don't get credit for it. So as long as you put, I mean, I guess if Gershonson regularly put 3 or 4 composers on a project, nobody ended up with more than 50%, and he just got the main music credit on whatever it was.
That's a
Interesting.
good
Could
point.
be.
Yeah, right. You're probably right about that.
I mean, there were exceptions like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, where it was 100% Frank Skinner, and Frank Skinner has a prominent, music credit for composing. And I think Castelnuovo Tedesco had, some things where he got credit, but it was like a small fraction of his output. Like a film you showed me, John, and then there were none, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, great one.
Yeah,
Was
that's great
Gershonston
Agatha
Universal? I want to mention, getting back to the Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein score, the cues from the score show up in a number of subsequent Universal and Abbot and Costello and non-Abbott and Costello films. There are cues from it. It's used as the main theme music for Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer in 1949. Abbott and Costello Meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1953. There are cues appearing in Coming Round the Mountain, 1951. I think there are cues in some of the Mon Pa Kettle films from the early 50s.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, Universal, who I guess like all studios reused cues
Yeah.
Mhm.
from other
Even-
films.
And sometimes a composer would just write a few original cues for the film, like for sequences that required it, but the rest of the film was all tracked in, reused.
That could have been a selling point. We could have said not only were you getting Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, we're getting the recordings for all these other films.
That's
There you
great.
go.
Yeah. All the Mong Pa Kettle films.
That's right.
But you said it, John. It's only a score of 43 minutes, but that's actually an unusually substantial score for one composer to get credited for a Universal film of this era.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the norm. Lots of times
No.
there would be partial scores or uncredited otherwise, like
Yeah.
Keystone Cops.
Just so you know, it looks like we might have uncovered 2 additional cues that weren't in the film.
That's thrilling.
So these will be extra little bonuses as well.
If we
Apparently 2 cues were dropped from the film, so we'll see how those are.
We're trying
But
to
we-
track them down.
Yeah. And
I love
Anna's
it
in
when that
charge
kind of
of,
thing happens.
she's in charge of making sure that all the parts and orchestrations are all in tip-top shape. John and I are orchestrating mainly, but she's helping out doing that. And you can go ahead and talk about it if you want.
Oh, yeah, I'll be doing the music prep for it, doing the parts, and sending them over to Scotland to be played.
Exciting. Well, with the bit of time we have remaining, do folks want to talk about their favorite parts of the score? The things you're particularly looking forward to tackling and hearing in modern sound, maybe?
I'll tell you after we hear the recording.
Oh, yeah? There's no part in the film where you're like, that bit is
No, I'll tell you. I mean, since this is such a joy for me to get up there and conduct, I mean, it's so much fun to get in front of an orchestra. I can't wait to give the first downbeat with the main title and the emblem and the main title, and hear all that stuff. Right, even though I've already done it in concert before, it's going to be different with recording it with Scotland. I can't wait to hear some of the internal cues that are very moody that you can't really hear in the film very well. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how innovative and how unusual a lot of this music is. And so I can't wait to get in front of the orchestra and conduct this stuff. I think it's just going to be fantastic.
There's a lot of musical integrity in his writing. I mean, it's very good music,
To me, the best sequence, which I think is in some ways the best sequence of the whole film, it's early in the film when Bud and Lou go to McDougal's House of Horrors to uncrate
I was just working on House of Horrors just now.
the caskets of Dracula and the Frankenstein monster. And, Lou is there by himself because Bud is off camera unpacking things. and you have these repeated things where Lou's trying to read about Dracula, and Dracula's opening his coffin, and the candle is moving, and Lou does his sputtering routine, and it's really brilliant. And I think that sets the tone for everything that follows in the film.
Yeah.
No, I know.
That scene is really kind of the font of the rest of the film musically.
And that kind of came from Who Done It. I mean, not Who Done It. Hold That Goes.
Yeah. Hold
Yeah.
That Goes. 1941.
They had the candles and
Yeah, the moving candle bit, which came out of burlesque.
yes.
I love that sequence. And the music's very interesting too. It's pretty creepy all through it. Keeps it serious, you know.
I gotta admit, I love the main title.
He loves the last chord.
The marriage between the visuals, it'll be interesting to hear it apart from it because
Yeah,
the
with
marriage.
the animation and
Yeah, with all that animation, it's really wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm actually looking forward, probably more than anything, is all the action music at the end. Monster Chase 1, Monster Chase 2. I can't wait to, because there's so much fun. Matter of fact, there's even a little Bernard Herrmann moment every once in a while. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, with a minor chord. And like, it's just very, very exciting. So, and the orchestra's going crazy. Like, it's just so much fun. So I'm looking forward to that stuff.
The animation in the opening credits, I think, was done by Walter Lantz.
Yeah, he was
Went
working.
on to do Woody Woodpecker.
Oh, Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
My
Roger,
pleasure.
do you have anything more you can tell us about the campaign? I think one of the notable elements for me was that somebody, maybe it was you at Intrada, decided to have the base CD tier be only $20 this time around, which is cheaper than your first three campaigns, and it even includes shipping in the US. So I think that's maybe why it's had such a successful launch with so many backers already. I think people are kind of just willing to give it a shot.
Yeah, and there's been quite a few people who at the $20 level are giving 30 or 40, or so clearly
They're
like
just
they want to
adding
see it
extra.
happen. Thank you for 20, but I'm going to give you more. There's one
Nice.
person who gave 20 but didn't pick at any gift level, which means when the campaign is done, someone's going to email saying I never got my CD, and it'll be because, well, you gave 20, but you didn't actually, because we get a report and tells us who to ship to where. So
You didn't
Yeah.
check.
straighten that all out.
You'll send it anyway, though, right?
You'll get it. But yeah, so we're entering that period where campaigns normally are a lull, but I'd love to buck that trend and just, if you're listening to this podcast and you're excited about this, please come back and increase your gift or don't, or participate for the first time. We really want to get these numbers up and make it happy.
How do you
Look at Bill. Bill is so excited. We cannot disappoint Bill.
Yeah. Hey, and if you pay $20,000, you can spend the night with Anna and me.
Okay.
That's a new
Yeah.
tier
Yeah,
level.
that'll bring a tear to anyone.
You can come storm chasing with Bill and I.
Oh,
That
that's
could
a
be
good
fun.
one. I always see your storm chasing videos and photos on Facebook, and it looks like pretty exciting stuff. So that'd be a pretty good perk for somebody if they're
Sure.
feeling
Yeah.
brave.
Our other
Oh,
life.
It's a lot of fun, yeah. Can you
Yeah,
tell
I
what
mean,
I'm
that's-
conducting right now?
Yeah, maybe
I
they
know what
can
it
if you're
is.
watching the video.
Keystone Cops.
It seems like you're pretty excited for Keystone Cops too. So we
Oh,
gotta
it's
make
just
sure
so
that last
cool.
8,000 happens.
Sure,
And
I hope so.
that's got some good action music at the end by William Lava, who I know from the Disney Zorro series from the late 50s. That's a favorite of mine growing up.
Yeah, I never liked William Lava until I started watching like Cheyenne and all these old westerns. And I think he's absolutely fantastic now. I think he writes great music. Oh, and then John and I were watching the serials. What was it? With the circle, the red circle.
Yeah, the daredevils in the red circle.
Yeah. Oh my God, William Lava wrote the
didn't he
greatest
also-
music ever. Oh, he wrote so much great.
Yeah, he
I
did.
always hated his Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner music, and so but I love all of his. So anyway, he's redeemed himself in my eyes. That's all.
Well,
William
I remember on Shirley Walker, putting together a team for Batman the Animated Series. Like certain composers would be great at scoring something like Animaniacs or whatever, and maybe wouldn't fit for Batman the Animated Series, or vice versa. Like everybody has their different strengths and things that come more naturally to them. And maybe for Lava, he was really good at writing action music or something, but not so. He wasn't a Carl Stalling in terms of brilliant cartoon accompaniment.
No, absolutely not. But anyway, I just love his music. Now I do. And especially the music he did for Keystone is fantastic. Even though it's based on Henry Mancini's music, it's still, you can tell there's an individual
voice,
tightness, finesse. He knows what he's doing. So I love it.
Does anyone have any final thoughts they want to offer before we wrap up?
All good.
No, I have no thoughts at all.
Well, I can give you a hint. We're not waiting for this Kickstarter to fund itself. We've already been getting to work on it. So a lot of the work's already been done and in the works.
We're still sitting here working on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we better make it happen then.
Well, thanks. Get that fun started.
Thanks so much for all you do for film music, all of you, and looking forward to this project and all future collaborations going forward. And I'm gonna say, Bill, you said you'd do me a favor because I was promoting that Herman campaign so much. I'm really gonna expect Roy Webb's score to Sinbad the Sailor someday.
Oh my God,
one of those that just do a Kickstarter, see if the funding happens for it.
I love that
give
score.
it a shot.
I doubt we would do very well, but I love that score very much.
You won't know until you try. Sinbad's an IP work. So
that's a terrific score. I love it. Love it. Anyway,
Roger,
Jonathan, thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate meeting you, and thanks for everything.
What are you looking at?
You.
Oh, Jonathan. Oh, yeah. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
All right. Good night, all. Thanks for joining, and until next time.
Thank you.
And good.